Hello guys, welcome to another episode of Java Game Development. In this episode I'll get a little bit more hands-on and show you guys how to make a frame for our games that we're going to be making. And basically what this is just going to be like a framework where we can just build our games on top of that. And it'll be real simple. I'll show you guys how. But before we get started on that, I just wanted to get something out of the way. In these tutorials, or at least in the beginning, I don't know what I'm gonna do for the future. I might branch out into other tutorials. We won't be covering that much accelerated hardware accelerated graphics. Probably more towards the end when you guys are kind of familiar with all of these things. Also, we won't be working in 3D, sadly. Not yet, anyways. I actually do plan to make a 3D series, but that's gonna be apart from this. In this series, you'll just get the concepts and stuff. Yeah, so I'll just get started on the code. Alright guys, so the first thing we're gonna want to do is make a class. I'm gonna call mine game screen. You can call yours whatever you want. This is gonna be our main thread in our game, so I'm gonna make it implement runnable so I can put it into a thread. You gotta put your run method in there. Hope you guys can't hear my keyboard. I think I could just edit it out later. We'll see. Yeah, so I'm gonna make the start and stop method right now. You don't really need the stop method for your game unless you're gonna put it in an applet. It's nice to have it there though. Okay, I'm making this boolean so I can put it in our loop. This is gonna be our main game loop. So while running equals true, we're just gonna do whatever is in here over and over. Make it nice and neat. Okay, then we have to render, or we have to have a method just for the rendering, so I'll make this one. Nice long name, always good to be definitive. Then we make our update method. You always want to have updating and rendering on separate methods because sometimes you want to do things differently. I put a time variable in the update method. I'll show you why in a different tutorial. This is just kind of get it set up. Gonna make a buffer strategy now, and this is gonna handle our buffering for us. Okie dokie. Now I gotta make a graphics object, and this graphics object it's what we're gonna do all our drawing with, and you'll see how in a little bit. Now we need something to set our buffer strategy with because this isn't a component, so it doesn't automatically get a buffer strategy. Pass that in right there. Bear with me guys, I don't know how long this tutorial is gonna be. So maybe I'll split it up into two. I don't know how I'll do it yet. Okay, now that we have that, let's put in our rendering method inside our loop and our updating method too. Let's just put 0 for now since we're not really gonna update anything. Okay, now here's where it gets tricky. You gotta get the graphics from the buffers and you set it to your graphics object. And obviously we're working with 2D, so you gotta make that a 2D. Then when you're done rendering, you dispose of your graphics. You gotta do it, otherwise it gets clogged up. Actually, I don't know what happens really. I know it's not good. Then when you're done with all of that, you show the buffer strategy, or the what's in the buffer. That's how I look at it. You just show what's in the buffer. I might go in depth about how the buffers work in a different tutorial, of course. Okay, now let's set up our start and stop. So if it's running, I want it to just return and get out of that method because it's already running. Why run it again? Let's just make our thread real quick so we can start it. And we make our screen object our thread. Wait, oops, wrong one. Okay, so we make our screen object a new thread, and we pass our game screen on it, and then we just simply start it. Oh yeah, I forgot. You gotta set running to true, otherwise it's not gonna do anything. And we'll do the same thing for our stop method. We just check if it's running, and if it is, then we just return. And then we set it's false. Actually, wait a minute. If it's not running, then we return because it's stopped. So if it's already stopped, okay, sorry about that. Was confused. Then when what you wanna do is join the thread. I'm pretty sure you can stop it too, but I don't use it because it just causes problems. Actually, I think it might be deprecated, so don't. Just do join. We want to make our other class. We'll call it a game window. And this is going to be like our J-frame, or it is going to be our J-frame. It's what's going to hold our screen. In a second, you'll see how and why they're two different things. Let's get this out of the way. You don't have to put the serial version, but I like to, just to get rid of that little question mark there. It annoys me. Let's make our main method. Pretty simple stuff. You just string f. Okay. And here we're just gonna make a new window object, or game window. So when our program starts, it's just gonna make a game window object. Okay. Now let's make the constructor. And let me see. Let's make the screen, the game screen now. We just make a game screen object on the window class, and we initiate it in the constructor. Okay, then let's make a canvas. You'll see why in a second. Yep. Then we import that in there. Okay, hopefully you guys aren't bored watching me do this. You'll see it's all worth it in a second. It's pretty cool. Just putting a dimension to our game, because otherwise it's not gonna have a size or anything. It's just gonna be like a little tiny screen, and you're not gonna be able to see anything. This is simple. The dimension is just a width and a height. So let's just put that right there, and we need a way to get it. But first, let's just make our constructor and just initialize this. As you can see, I like to make all my variables private and then make setters and getters for them. This is just like a less confusing way of doing things, I think. So I just put it on 600 and 400. It's gonna be like a sort of kind of big screen. Now we just make the method to get the size from the object. And yeah, simple as that, I think. That's pretty much it. Now we just kind of set up our J-frame and canvas. Okay, we gotta put the size to the canvas first. So we set the canvas size to the screen, the size that we agreed on the screen, on the game screen. And now we want to set our default close operation, so when you press the X, it closes. Now, for your games, or for the games that we're going to be making, we're not going to do this. We're going to do it a little bit different. Kind of prompt the user if they really want to close. But I'll show you later. That's for other tutorials. This is just the frame. Now that we added the canvas, we gotta set the frame visible, otherwise it's not gonna work. And you gotta do this before here, I'll show you. You gotta do it before you create the buffer strategy, because otherwise it's not gonna be able to do it. Actually, wait a second. You gotta put the buffer strategy, you gotta create the buffer strategy after you add it to the J-frame. So you gotta add the canvas first to the J-frame, then you create the buffer strategy, and then you set your screen buffer. It's really simple, really. Now let's just figure out how we're gonna make it work. Still missing a couple things. I like to pack my screens instead of like putting a size to the J-frame. I like to use the pack method. It's really cool. All it does is it makes it fit perfectly with the components inside. And since we only have the canvas, it makes it perfect. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. You have to start your screen, obviously. So we just put screen start there. And now we set the location of the frame. You always, well, not always, you might have different plans for it, but I like to put it in the center of the screen when it opens up. So I set the relative location to null. And there you go. As you can see, we have a window. It's not very exciting. It's actually rendering right now. So you can't see it because it's not really, we haven't said anything on it, but I'll show you in a second. Yeah, it's working fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and put some graphics. Let's set the color of our graphics. Let's actually do the background, because you always gotta fill the screen. You can choose any color you want. I like black, but it really doesn't matter. Then we gotta fill the whole rectangle of the screen, and we set it to the height and width of our screen. There we go. Now it should render something. Voila, it's black. And let me check something. I'm gonna go ahead and cheat and use wraps. And as you can see, it's actually running at 2,000 frames, around 2,000 frames per second. That's actually really good. Now, this might look like peak efficiency, but we actually haven't put a sleep in our thread method. We'll actually do that later. And when you start adding images and stuff and rendering, this number will go down significantly, so don't get excited. It's gonna go down to like around 500 frames max, and that's still good. It's not bad considering we're not using like OpenGL and anything. So that's it for this. Alright guys, just a quick thing I forgot to do. You gotta set your screen or your J-frame, you gotta set ignore repaint to true so it doesn't use its own paint method while you're painting, because we made our own. And also the canvas, since it also has a paint method and a repaint manager, so it repaints itself. And that will just slow down our game. Yeah, also the canvas, you have to request focus, and we'll use that later to kind of get input from users. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to get in before I ended the video. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to rate and subscribe. If you have a question, leave a comment and I'll be sure to take a look at it. See you guys next episode.